Hello and welcome to Creating Stuff. My name is Jim, and today in the shop I'm going to show you another neat little trick I got up my sleeve. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to show you how to hack a cruise control module for a Toyota Tacoma. So and when I say hack it, meaning I'm going to use this for something other than cruise control. Actually, I'm going to make this so it can be used as a remote engine throttle. So I'm going to do it electronically. So, and you might be asking, okay, well, what do I need a remote throttle for? So, all right, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to cover that first, and then I'm going to show you tell you the benefit of doing it with the factory cruise control module for the Tacoma. So this is actually going to be for a first generation Tacoma, third generation 4Runner. I believe halfway through the first generation Tacoma, they went to a different cruise control module. I have not done one of those yet, but I would imagine it's probably works something similar to this one. So, but why would you want a remote throttle? Well, this is going on a four-wheel drive truck. It can be used for multiple different things. Is number one, when it's below freezing and you want to idle the vehicle up to help it warm up, you can fire the truck up, raise the idle up. It'll help it warm up a little bit quicker. That's one way you can do it. That's one thing you can use it for. Another thing is if you have a Tacoma with a winch on it, then if you're at a stationary winch point winching other vehicles, it's very easy where you can throttle the engine up, where you can get the RPMs get the RPM up to get the alternator spinning faster, so you can create more power to run your winch, so you don't put as much strain on your battery. So that's another thing. And then one of my other videos that I showed you how to put a air compressor, or convert a York air compressor and mount it onto a 3.4 into a third gen pickup, my Inferno build. Then when you're running an air compressor, then once again, if you get the engine RPM up a little bit, you can get a lot more volume out of that air compressor, and you can fill your tires up faster. You can run air tools. You can seat the beat on tires. So there's multiple things that you can use it for, but mainly when you have loads that you need to get your engine RPM up, so you can run those loads a little bit better. But now you're going to say, okay, well, I've seen these cool guys and they have these little levers on their shifters, like they can do like a bicycle shifter and cable, stuff like that. And but that works just the same. That works just as good, or if not better. And I'm not saying anything's better than anything else, but there's a couple things working for this. Is number one, chances are your vehicle might already have this module in it, so you don't have to buy. You have to buy some additional parts, but you don't have to buy this, or you can get them pretty cheap. I know if you go to a Toyota recycler, you'll probably get one of these things pretty cheap, I would imagine. So, but anyways, so a vehicle might have it. You can probably get it pretty cheap. And now, the benefit of doing with the factory cruise control module is because we're going to do this electrically, meaning we're going to do it with wires and switches. So what we can do with that is one of the biggest things is not only can you put the switches anywhere, but then you can also have multiple switches. On my other Toyota truck, Big Red, my 88 Toyota pickup that already has the belt-driven air compressor on it, and I do it just for that. So when I engage my air compressor, when I'm sitting behind the steering wheel, I flip a switch, I turn the air compressor on, and then as soon as I do that, I can go ahead and I can throttle the RPM up, so I can get the engine, get more volume out of the air compressor before I get out of the cab. That's perfect. And I have a duplicate set of controls for it because that truck also has a Premier power welder. So I have a duplicate set of control switches actually on my welding control box for the Premier power welder. So, when I engage the Premier, all I can do, I just got to hit the switch, and I can throttle it up. I can throttle up or down, get my welding amperage right, and that just works phenomenal. So that's one of the biggest benefits is number one, you can mount them anywhere in the truck. You're not limited by cable, as long as you make the wires is more or less on how far the switches can be from the module, and then once again, I can put them in multiple locations. And this particular setup, yes, I mean, this is going in my Inferno build, along with the compressor I did in one of my other videos. And yes, and once again, I'm going to have multiple switch locations because I'm going to have switches like accessible from the driver's seat, and then wherever I mount the control box for the Premier power welder, because the truck will have a Premier as well, I can put those switches on that control box as well. So that's really a benefit. So, but depending on how you have your vehicle set up, if you wanted a set of switches on the outside of the truck, you can do that too. So if you had an air fitting for your air compressor on the outside of the truck, you could have a switch right next to it for the air compressor, have another couple switches to throttle it up, and you can do it from the outside of the truck. So those are some of the benefits for doing it this way. Is number one, you might already have the cruise control module, and they're relatively expensive, and you can put the controls for it anywhere, and you can actually have multiple locations. So anyways, so that's what I've got going on with the remote throttle. So tell you what, I'm running my mouth a little too much. So tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get everything out. And I'll say this now, and I'll say it multiple times through the video, is all the information I'm giving you now, I'm making it available to anybody if they want it. So basically in the description of the video, I'm going to have an email address, creatingstuffwithjim@gmail.com. Email me, because I actually have written wiring diagrams for how to do this, and more or less not necessarily instructions, but I'll give you all the information that I can. If you want to do this to your own vehicle, I will give you all the information to help you do it. So all that is going to be available. So, but you just have to send me an email, and please be patient with me. I only check that email account maybe once every week or two. So it might take me a little while to get back to you. I tend to stay a little busy, so please, I apologize for that. Please be patient with me. So, tell you what, I'm running my mouth too much. It is time to get to work. I'm going to show you what I have and how I'm going to do this. So let's get to it. All right, time to get into it. First and foremost, you need a cruise control module. This module is found in a first generation Tacoma, third generation 4Runner, on a 3.4. I believe if you have a 4-cylinder, this should be the same module. But you need this, and then if this is not in your vehicle already, you also need the pigtail, which is the plug and the wires that go with it. You need to start off with those, and then to control it is you need a couple of switches. Basically, this is just a simple on-off single pole, single throw switch. Nothing fancy about that. You can use rockers, toggles, whatever you want. I prefer rockers. That's just me personally. So this is to turn the system on and off. And then you're going to need a double pole, double throw, momentary on, off, momentary on switch. And what I mean by that is if you look at this switch, you press it one way, it releases. You press it the other way, it releases. And in the middle is all the contacts for the switch are open. So basically, these are your two common terminals, and that's for one side, that's for the other. I'm going to go through how this works, but basically on how it's going to work is when you go to increase your throttle, you're going to press it a couple times, one way to raise it, another way to lower it. So you need that switch. You need a double pull, double throw, momentary both way switch. Then you're going to mount them. I made this. This is 3D printed. The lettering should show up a little better. Unfortunately, I was out of white filament, so all I had was clear. So unfortunately, It doesn't show up very well, but it's there. This is for the one switch. I call it arm and disarm. We're going to turn the system on or turning it off. Throttle up, throttle down. Very simple, but you can mount them however you wish, label them however you wish. This is just, and this is not going to be the final mounting, but I'm just doing it for the time being while I'm setting this up. And then another thing you're going to have to do is, using 12 volts, this motor is going to move too fast. Unfortunately, you think that it's going to move a lot, but just to raise the engine RPM a couple hundred RPM, it doesn't take a whole lot, and and this does not have fine enough to do that, so you have to slow this motor down. My other truck, I just put a resistor in it, in line to control the motor. That works. The only thing I recommend if you use a resistor is when you go to figure out what size or what ohm resistor works, I suggest to have everything set up on your vehicle with the engine running, because if you do it off of the engine off with just battery voltage, once you start the truck up and the alternator is putting out 14 volts, the resistance is going to change what you're going to need. It's going to move faster than you realize. So if you use a resistor, you need to figure that out while the engine's running. I might touch on that a little bit later. But on this one, I'm going to do an experiment because I got a DC motor controller. It was like $7 on Amazon, where it's a pulse width modulator to control the motor speed. Which you actually have a knob where you can actually speed it up or slow it down. So I'm going to try that on this to see how well that works. I think it's going to work a lot better than the resistor, especially because I can fire the truck up and I can actually calibrate this to exactly how fast I want it to move. And I believe it should have more power than a resistor, because when you put a resistor in it, it drops the voltage, which, I mean, it loses some of its power to operate the throttle. Meaning if you put too big of a resistor, you may not open the throttle. It may not have enough power to move the throttle. So I'm going to try this, see how this works. I think it's going to work pretty well. So, and then the last piece you need is you just need a standard 12-volt relay. This is a standard single pole double throw 12-volt relay and the associated pigtail. And what you're going to use this for is basically this has to be for an interlock. And when I call it an interlock, which actually I probably should have said this a little earlier, the way I'm setting this up is I'm doing this as a standalone system. And when I say a standalone, meaning when this is hooked into the truck, it will no longer be able to be used as cruise control. And part of that reason is because the ECM and wiring harness that I have for the motor that I swapped into my truck did not have the option of cruise control. So the ECM is not set up for it. The wiring is not there in the harness. So with that being said, in order to run this as cruise control, I would have to change my wiring harness and my ECM. So it's one of those things. I don't think I'm going to go to that trouble. I don't know if this truck's going to see enough highway where that's even going to matter. So I'm just running this as a standalone unit, meaning the only thing this is going to be used for is a remote throttle. So, but what I will tell you is the wiring diagrams that I'm willing to share. I do have a wiring diagram where you can set this up where you can maintain the ability to use this as cruise control. And basically the only difference between what I'm doing here and the one that can be still used as a cruise control is you'll have to have 4 additional relays. And what they're going to do is when you use it in remote throttle mode, it will actually, the 4 relays will actually isolate this module from the ECM. So you don't trip any codes, you don't burn anything up. It will disconnect that from the ECM and then connect it to the controls that you're going to add. So, and then once again, when you're done with remote throttle, you shut it off. It'll actually reconnect this to the ECM so you can use it as a as cruise control again. So anyways, but this is but once again, that should work well. I'm going to have information for both, but unfortunately, this will be set up as a standalone only, what I'm doing in this video. And So basically, but what I'm going to use this relay for when I call it an interlock is what an interlock is it will prevent, it will only allow this to function as long as certain things are met. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to wire this in, actually the way my wiring diagram is going to show to you is I'm going to wire this into the parking brake indicator light. So the only way this remote throttle is going to work is if the parking brake is set and the vehicle is parked. This particular setup in my truck, I'm actually going to hook this to the neutral safety switch, so the transmission has to be in park or neutral for this to work. And the biggest reason I'm doing that is because when you're remotely operating the throttle and you're going to leave it revved up for a ways, you want this vehicle to be parked. You don't want it in gear, you don't want it moving, because this is not set up for cruise control. So that's a safety thing to do, because every commercial vehicle I've ever worked on, or or any equipment I've worked on, anytime you had a remote throttle, it is always interlocked to the parking brake, meaning if you release the parking brake, it deactivates this and shuts it down. So, and that's safety for you and actually everybody around you. So, but that's what this is for. And I actually have that set up on my other truck. So the only way the remote throttle works is when my parking brake is set. And that is for safety and safety alone. So, but that, I mean, that works out really well. I mean, that's actually, on this kind of thing, that's a standard feature for anything that's sold production anywhere. So, but like I said, if you bypass this, that's on you. I don't recommend it. I like to be safe. And once again, if I'm going to use this as cruise control, I'm going to be running it through the ECM so it works properly. So when I hit the brake or push the clutch in, if you have a clutch, this will automatically disengage. So if you use a remote throttle while you're driving down the road, you hit the brake and it's going to continue to keep the RPM up there. It's not going to have the safety features that the cruise control was designed with. So, but anyways, so I guess that's my public safety disclaimer and all that. So, but once again, that's what you need. So now the heart of this, on how this works, is basically the 4 wires that are coming off this module. Is, once again, I'll give you a wire diagram, and if you can read my scribble handwriting, basically how this is going to work is when the system is active, you have a blue wire with a white tracer. That's going to be 12 volts while it's active. So, so when the 12 volt goes away, it's going to shut off. And so then you have a black with a red. That's going to be the ground. Those two kind of go together. So, and then the remaining two, you have a black and a white tracer, a green and a black tracer. And how these work is basically depending on which way you send the current is the direction the motor is going to go. So if you have the positive wire going on this side and the ground on this side, it may throttle up. If you have the positive on this side and the ground on this side, then the throttle is going to go down. So that's how those 2 wires work. It's actually pretty simple. So that's where this momentary rocker switch comes in, is basically when you hit one way, the polarity will be one way. When you hit that way, the polarity will be the other. So I hope you understand. If not, if you don't understand, I hope you can read a wiring diagram. So, because once again, those will be, and I'll probably put a picture of those up on the screen, just on how it works. So, but anyways, with that said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to probably turn the camera off, and I am going to go ahead and start wiring some of this stuff up, and I'm going to bring you back when I have something to show you. All right, I got you something to show you. Looks a little jumbled, but this is actually more organized than I can be a lot of times. So first and foremost, here's my cruise control module. I took the pigtail. I've already made, this is, like I said, I'm installing this into a truck. But so I've already gone, this is just the harness that's going to go from the cruise control module to the switch panel. So I've already made that up. Got my switch panel with my 2 switches. Everything's wired up. I got my power, my ground going to a battery, and here is my motor controller. And let's see if I can move this around. All right, and right here you see is my cable. So now I'm gonna see if it powers up. Okay, and normally when I get this switch, I got the one with the illuminated light by accident. I normally don't like this light here. I like this one because the system is on. But anyways, let's see what happens. Wow, that works. So we get throttle up, throttle down. That actually works. I'll tell you what, let's give the motor controller a try. Yep, that's working exactly like it's supposed to. So that works really well. I can adjust the speed of it. Hopefully it should still have enough torque to do what it needs to do. And then also there's another thing on how this works, on how I told you how you had the 12 volt and the ground going to that, is when you take those away, the system automatically shuts down. So so even if I did put the control voltage to actuate this without that 12 volts on there, it won't engage. The motor will turn, but it won't move the cable. So pretty happy with that. That's working pretty good. Tell you what, I'm going to switch over to another clip and also I did not wire in the interlock relay. This is actually going to be into the truck. So when the truck is not in park or neutral, I just will not have 12 volt power here. So that's how the interlock's going to work. And tell you what, I'm going to cut to a clip. I'm going to go to the dry erase board and I'm going to show you how I'm going to try to explain on how this relay actually works. And then I'm also going to try to explain exactly on how all this system works. And like I said, it's very wiring diagram intense. I hope you can follow along. But so I tell you, I'm going to jump over to that clip and I'll be right back. And when I come back, I'm going to probably be working on installing this on the truck to see if it works. So, or actually make sure that this still has enough torque to work properly with the motor controller. So I tell you what, let's go to the dry erase board and I'm going to tell you a few things about the interlock relay and the system at work, how the system works. I'm going to go from there. Let's get to it. All right, behind me I have the whole wiring diagram drawn up on the dry erase board. If you have trouble seeing it and if you'd like a copy, I do have a much better copy of that on a PDF. I'll be more than happy to send it to you. So just email me at creatingstuffwithjim@gmail.com and I'll be more than happy to send you that. And I also have a wiring diagram I drew up is if you want, because this is for a standalone system. I also did a wiring diagram if you also wanted your factory cruise control to continue to work. Like I said, it has 4 additional relays in it, but like I said, that's a way that it can be made to work. So I tell you what, let's get into it. Starting over here on the far right, this is actually the factory cruise control module with the 4 wires that I talked about earlier, that I showed you earlier. And then down here, we have your ignition power source, 12 volt power source, and we have a ground. All this down here is part of the existing vehicle, is because you're going to have a ignition power source going to the parking brake switch, and then it's going to go illuminate a light. So basically for the interlock relay right here is basically we're going to splice into this wire between the two, take it up and put it to the coil terminal of the relay, and then the other side of the coil has to go to a ground. So every time you set your parking brake, this switch is going to close, energizing the system. And at any time, even with the system being activated, if you were to release it, power will go away from this, the switch will open, and everything will shut down. So anyway, so that is your interlock relay. So Now, if the park and brake is set, we got power coming through here, gonna go through this relay and it's gonna come up to your system on switch. So when you close this switch, then we're gonna send power, first and foremost, is gonna go to the blue-white wire on the cruise control, the factory cruise control module. This one requires to have 12 volts in order to work. If this doesn't have 12 volts, the servo can move either way, but it won't do anything unless this has 12 volts, and then the other side of it is the black and red wire is ground. So master switch on, you get power here, you have a ground here, the system is armed, and then another wire gets spliced in and comes over to power up the DC motor controller, which once again has its own ground. So, and then the output of that motor controller, where you can adjust how fast or how slow the motor turns, is you have a positive and a negative output. And so basically they come over here to the double pole, double throw switch, and this is a momentary on, off, momentary on switch, meaning the switch is completely open in the normal resting position. You press one side of the switch, they connect these two terminals. You press it the other way, it connects to those two terminals, and whenever you release it, it springs back to the middle. It's very important. You have to have that feature in order for this to work. And then the positive and negative coming off the DC motor controller is you have the positive on these two terminals, the negative on these two. So whenever you switch it, whichever way you switch it, the positive and the negative are going to get reversed. And that's how you control the different direction of the motor. And those two inputs that switch between positive and negative go to the black and the white and the green and the black. And like I said, those, by turning positive and negative, you control which way it turns. So in a nutshell, that's how this system works. It's very simple. Well, kind of. But that's how it works. And then once again, if you would like a printed copy that's easy to read, please email me at creatingstuffwithjim@gmail.com. I'll be more than happy to email you one of those. And once again, this is a standalone setup. I do have another diagram I'm not going to go to in this video on how to set it up for if you want your cruise control to continue to work. So anyways, I tell you what, let me go back out in the shop, and I'm going to go ahead and get this system set up in the truck so I can demonstrate it. So let's get to it. All right, now that I got the cruise control module all hacked, wiring is all done, and like I said, so now all I have to do is install all this onto the truck. So first thing I got to do is I got to take the bracket off the throttle body, put it on my throttle body, and then mount the cruise control module, and then go into the wire. So let me get to it. Now for the cruise control module, my plan is I gotta modify this bracket just a little bit, but I think my plan is to mount it somewhere right about here, and then that can loop around. That looks like that should work. This was originally mounted over here, but I have plans for this space over here. So anyways, well, let me go modify this bracket, get it bolted on, and go from there. All right, I got the module mounted right there on the firewall. I just had an existing bolt I used there, self-drilling screw on the other side. That seems to work really well. So then now, just have to install the cable. Oops. And big thing to always remember is make sure this throttle returns all the way. Otherwise, you could have a problem. All right, now install the wiring. And another thing I did was I used Deutsch connectors and made the harness in sections just to make it easier to work with. And I will come back later and secure that. All right, I got all my wiring straight. I'm ready to do the final installation and do the first test. So, in here, in the cab of the truck is, apologize about the lighting conditions. This is the harness going to the cruise control module. And this is my power and my ground, and the power is interlocked. Like I said, although all the information I gave you interlocked to the parking brake, I actually interlocked to my neutral safety switch, and I'll show you that here in a minute. So this hot right here is the neutral interlock it has a neutral interlock instead of a parking brake interlock. It'll do the same thing. It'll keep your ass safe. Well, excuse me, keep your butt safe. So, and I'm trying to, and I'm trying to do a better job than I have in the past. So everything is modular. So this plug goes in here. This plug goes in here. So I should be good to go. So let's just do a dry run first. Ignition, key in the ignition, ignition on. System's armed. Now I'm going to pull the transmission out of park. Power goes away. Interlock is working good. Oops, my neutral is a little finicky, but go back into park. System comes back on. So, and I got slack in the cable right now. So the throttle is currently at an idle. So I'm going to press this. No, actually, I think I have the oh, and there you have it. I am actually throttled up a little bit, not much. Also, the DC motor controller, and you heard it snap as it goes off. Just remember the adjustment. This adjustment right here for the DC motor controller. You need to make that while the engine is running, because you have more voltage than it does when it's off. But so you heard it now. Once again, I'm going to show you my interlock again. And you heard the big clunk. System goes off. So I'll tell you what. And let me go ahead and fire this up. that worked really well. That worked exactly as it's intended to be. As I said, you might not have heard me, when you adjust that motor controller, make sure the engine is running, because you have 14 volts versus about 13 and a half. So you get more voltage. So like I said, and the whole idea behind it is you're not necessarily press and hold to get your RPM. You actually have to just tap that button and tap it and release it until you have the RPM you want. Which when I'm running my air compressor on my other truck, I'm generally running about 1500 RPM. Actually works pretty well for the air compressor. But when I run the Premier Power Welder, if I'm welding some heavy steel, I'll actually have that engine wound up pretty high, just like you heard. But that's just what it is meant for. So that works out really well. The interlock is working great. Like I said, if I was to pull that out of park, it would have shut the fast idle right down. Otherwise, I would have pulled it in reverse, and the truck would have just taken off in reverse, and that would have been pretty bad. So I'm pretty happy with that. It's turning out pretty good. Well, that is about gonna do it for this episode. I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you took something away from it. So, as I said previously, if you would like to try this and want to do this to your own vehicle, and you want some more information, please email me at creatingstuffwithjim@gmail.com, and I'll be more than happy to send you the schematics and whatever information I can help you with. Once again, this was a very fun project to do. Like I said, this is the second time I've done it. The first time I did to my other truck. And like I said, it gives you a nice feature that most vehicles don't have. So you mainly find this stuff in big commercial vehicles. But in a truck like this, I like having a remote throttle, and that works very well. And I like doing it through the wiring, because that just makes it a lot cleaner rather than having cables and this, that, the other. So it gives me more options. So, well, but anyways, with that being said, if you like the video and you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I have plenty of more stuff that I'm going to be doing out here in the shop, among other things that you might find interesting. So, and then if you like it, please like the video. Anyways, so I'm going to just leave this video out here, and I will see you on the next one. Until then, be creative.